Hello, everyone, and welcome to Accidentally Profound, the unofficial #1 podcast in Indianapolis, Indiana. I am your host, Drew Kennington, and of course, we are coming to you live from the always great, always wonderful, always beautiful Indianapolis, Indiana. Got a bit of a cloudy, slightly chilly, little windy day on our hands. It's because the Midwest weather decided to do what Midwest weather does best and put the old Uno reverse card on you for the weather aspect of things. Pardon that burp. The stomach has been slightly on demon timing today because I will say this weekend, the diet's been a little crazy. My diet this weekend has been a little absurd. And now I'm not going to come on here and act like every weekend, I'm Mr. Discipline, Mr. hitting the macros, Mr. counting the calories. But I usually keep it somewhat tame. I try to eat my 3 square meals, do my best, but starting yesterday, bro, it has been anything but that. It all started. Woke up early yesterday, which I'm not usually a wake up early guy on the weekends. I'm usually pretty good for like a 10:30, 11 a.m. wake up on the weekends. It's just how I am. It's who I am. I'm a sleeper inner. I'm a sleeping in. I don't know what phrase I'm going for there, but I like to sleep in. Woke up at 8:30, had a whole bunch of stuff on the itinerary to start the day, and unfortunately, getting food was not one of the items on that itinerary. So from 8:30 to 1:30, all I had to eat was like a handful of Mike and Ike sours, which is an absurd breakfast, I will say. Like I didn't even have coffee or like any type of caffeine. It was literally just a few sips of water and a couple handfuls of Mike and Ike sours for the first 4 hours that I was awake. Absolutely wild. And I want to add, I think I was going to bring this up on my weekly observations, but I'm going to bring it up now. I'm a huge Mike and Ike guy. Like, that's my candy. That is my go-to. Whenever it's, yo, let's go to the store, get some candy. What am I grabbing? I'm grabbing Mike and Ike's. They're the GOAT. The OG, the green box, it's hands, no one's touching it, in my opinion. So when I ventured out and went and got some Mike and Ike sours, I kind of thought that I'd be getting a similar experience to Mike and Ike's, just maybe with a little hit of sour. Boy, was that wrong. Those things tasted like. Have you ever been in a gas station bathroom where they have way too much Febreze or way too much air freshener, and you can almost taste the air freshener because there's so much going on? That is what it was like eating these Mike and Ike sours. And it was a moment where I really had to take a step back and ask myself, what the fuck am I putting into my body? There's just every now and again when you're eating something like these like super processed foods, you kind of have that like awareness, like come to Jesus type moment where you're just like, what exactly am I doing to myself right now? Is this what the Lord intended when he put me on this earth? And I had one of those moments, man, because I was chewing mouthfuls of these things, and it was straight fragrance. It was the most disgusting, not the most disgusting. Because although I'm talking shit about it, I ate like over half the box. So I don't really know how I feel about these Mike and Ike sours, to be honest. But I will not be partaking in those again. That's what we'll leave it at. But that's all I had for breakfast yesterday. And then I finally was able to get like food, like a real meal. I didn't eat a real meal until 7 o'clock. Because in between the Mike and Ike sours and the real meal at 7 o'clock, we went to the movies. Saw the new Michael movie. We may get into that a little bit later, but I had like popcorn, like buttery popcorn, peanut M&Ms, and a pretzel breadstick. Like, what is going on? It just felt like shit yesterday. And it just goes to show how much food, the things we eat, affect the way we feel. Because I usually feel pretty good. I usually feel pretty chill, pretty grand, I would say. But yesterday, from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., I was pretty in the trenches, pretty down in the dumps, pretty not feeling well. So, I think maybe for any of my viewers out there who maybe go around their day to day and wonder, man, why do I feel like shit all the time? Maybe try to evaluate what you put into your body. If you're eating Mike and Ike sours for breakfast, that might be the cause. Okay, enough on that. Let's get into something of actual substance instead of talking about what it is that I have eaten over the past few days. I wanted to bring up Walden again. I know. It's like, what, 3 episodes in a row I've brought up this book that I'm reading. And, well, we're going to do it again because this thing is just full of heaters. It's full of bangers. It's full of quotes that really make me sit back and go, And that's always a good read. But I first want to point out, for any of my video listeners, if you're listening to this on audio, maybe you can't see, but my video listeners, do you see how just, like, fancy this book looks? Like, bro, when I'm in bed and I'm reading this shit, I feel like I'm some sort of, I don't even know. Like, I just feel so smart. Because it's like, bro, like, gold-lined pages, this big book. Do you see this built-in bookmark, bro? Like, hold up. Let me put you on real quick. Crack her open. Built-in bookmark, dog. Like, they're not doing that in the Magic Treehouse series that y'all be reading because y'all are still in 5th fucking grade. I'm so sorry. That was so mean. But there was one segment in this book in particular that I wanted to cover because it really made me think and it really provoked a lot of thought within me. And I was like, that's just something that I think I should expand on my podcast because that's what we do here, guys. We are a podcast of very deep and very insightful thoughts. That is everything we do here. It is only deep. It is only insightful. No silly business here on this show. This is a serious show with a serious host, and we talk about serious topics only. And I was like, this is the perfect addition to my repertoire of serious quotes. But before we get into that, I have a bunch of stuff highlighted. I kind of want to read a couple of these things I have highlighted just to, like, kind of show you the type of shit that we be getting into in this book. Because this book really is, man. It's, like I said, it's 3 episodes in a row I think I've talked about this book. That means we're doing something right over here. 3 episodes in a row, I'm bringing this shit up. So the first one I want to talk about, I just want to read. I don't really want to talk about it. I just want to read the quote to you. See, some of them you kind of have to know the context. If I just read it to you, you may be like, what the hell are you talking about? This one here says, while civilization has been improving our houses, it has not equally improved the men who are to inhabit them. Talk about a bar. Hold up. Let me get you one more. The best works of art are the expression of man's struggle to free himself from this condition. But the effect of our art is merely to make this low state comfortable and that higher state to be forgotten? Come on. Give me one more. Henry David Thoreau. Okay, I think that's actually all I had written down. Hold on. There's one more in here. There is one more in here. Ooh. I am sure that there is greater anxiety, commonly, to have fashionable or at least clean and unpatched clothes than to have a sound conscience. Come on, Henry. Do I got one more for y'all? I thought there was one more in here I had. Where is it? That one's not that much of a bar. This is like, again, I apologize. This is not great podcasting to start the show. We're kind of all over the place. All you hear is me just flipping through pages. So I understand this may not be the greatest listening experience. So let's actually get into what we came here to talk about, if I can find it. See, okay. So I think I'm just gonna read the quote, and then we can kind of break down what it is about it that made me feel so, juiced. So, and then like I said, I don't remember. Once I read it, I'll know the exact context. So let's just get into it. Enough stalling, Drewski. Come on. Who knows? But if men constructed their dwellings with their own hands and provided food for themselves and families simply and honestly enough, the poetic faculty would be universally developed, as birds universally sing when they are so engaged. But alas, we do like cowbirds and cuckoos, which lay their eggs in nests which other birds have built, and cheer no traveler with their chattering and unmusical notes. Shall we forever resign the pleasure of construction to the carpenter? Now, the reason why that was so profound to me, at first when I read it, I didn't really think much of it. I was just kind of like, oh, that's cool. He said that we should forever resign the pleasure of construction to the carpenter, because, like, I'm a carpenter. So I was like, yo, shout out Henry David Thoreau for gassing me up real quick. But a couple sentences later, he says, "It is not the tailor alone who is the ninth part of a man. It is as much the preacher and the merchant and the farmer. Where is the division of labor to end?" And that, my friends, was when I was like, yo, wait a minute. Henry D is getting pretty deep right now. Because what made me start to think is that we live these lives where everything is kind of automated, kind of taken care of for us. In a way, it's been subbed out, so to speak. Like when you, in the construction field, for example, when you build a house, oftentimes, like, you'll hire a company to do it, but it's not necessarily that company that is doing everything. So if you want to have, the foundation poured for your house, you'll hire a contractor who handles it all, but he's subbing it out to somebody else. He's having a different crew of workers that do not work for him directly come in and do the work. So it's basically something outside of himself is performing the work for him. And in our lives, I feel like we have subbed out so much of our lives to the point where we don't really do much for ourselves anymore. Like he says, the tailor, the merchant, the preacher, the farmer. We don't grow our own food anymore. All of it's taken care of for us. We just go to the grocery store and purchase it. We don't build our own homes. Other companies build them for us. We don't get places under our own power. These vehicles do it for us. We don't read these spiritual texts, read the Bible, and come to our own conclusions about God. We have a preacher on a stage with a microphone telling us how we should be interpreting these words. So we don't really do things for ourselves anymore. We basically pay other people to do it for us. And the way we support this payment, the way we support our lives in a way, is by paying for it, by working, and our job is the money that supports this lifestyle. So it becomes this thing, we become stuck in this loop where everything is automated for us, everything is done for us, and the means by which we achieve that is by paying for it monetarily. And how do we achieve the money that we use to pay for these, basically supporting our entire life? It's through our job, through our work. So in a way, the only purpose we have, the only duty we really have, is to show up and go to work, because everything else is taken care of for us. As long as you log your 40 to 50 to 60 hours a week and you get your paycheck, everything's taken care of. There's no wanting for anything. There's no work that needs to be put in to sustain any type of anything in your life. It's all automated. And I feel like that is why we often find ourselves in positions where we lack purpose, because the only purpose we have in this life is our job. And frankly, most of us work very unfulfilling jobs. Like if you just work like a boring office job where you go sit in a bland office in a cubicle for 40 hours a week with super bright white fluorescent lighting, with everybody that's dressed in fucking the same shit, that is your purpose. That is what you need to do to fulfill the needs of your life. And maybe I'm speaking out of turn here, but I feel like that's not a very fulfilling existence. I feel like you wouldn't, when you think about, like, man, what have I done with my life? It's working a job that I didn't really like to sustain these monetary needs that I've built for myself. And a lot of these, honestly, monetary traps. So you kind of put yourself in a monetary trap you can't get out of. And now the only way to support it is through a soul-sucking frustrating job. So I guess what am I trying to say here? Am I saying that we all need to quit our jobs and go farm and build our own houses? Yeah, I am. No, I'm just kidding. That's not what I'm saying here. All I'm saying is, see, that's what I try to get at here is when I say these things, I don't necessarily have the answers for you. That's the thing. Like I'm just kind of like bringing it to y'all's attention. It's like, so when we come on here and I start talking about things, it's just things that I've been thinking about. So in this instance in particular, do I have the answer for how we fix this epidemic, so to speak? No, I don't. Because I just realized this like 3 or 4 days ago, when I was reading that passage. So to sit here and tell you, like, yeah, I have the answer, I have the juice, I have the sauce to pull you out of this rut, I don't have it. But what I can do, what I attempt to do here, is to bring these things to your attention. Bring these things of life to the forefront so that we're just aware of them. Because I feel like when we're aware of these things, we may not always have the answer immediately. We may not always know exactly what to do to pull ourselves out of these ruts, to pull ourselves out of these positions. But it is a bit easier to see the path out when you are aware of the circumstance you're confined in. When you know exactly what it is that's holding you back, when you know where it is about you that your shortcomings, so to speak, it's a lot easier to create a path to move out of there. Whereas if you're just living in this constant cycle of negativity and you have this negative feedback loop where, it's just like shit just always seems to suck. And then when you ask yourself, well, why does it suck? And you're like, man, I don't know why. I don't know why my life sucks. I don't know why I have no purpose. I don't know why things seem so difficult for me. It can be very hard to figure out how to get out of it because you have to know what is up to know how to get out of it. So, if I just start talking about whatever on here, bring it to the forefront, maybe it'll click something in your brain. Maybe it'll click something within your mind to kind of make you start thinking about your own life, about your own circumstance, about your own situation. And you might have an insightful thought or two. You might accidentally become profound. You see what I'm saying here, bro? That's why the title of this show is such a banger. Come on. And while actually we're on the topic of things that, knowing kind of basically being aware about your circumstance and how to move accordingly once you find that awareness, I tried Busch Apple this week. And now you may be questioning, Drew, what the fuck does that have to do with anything that we just talked about? Hold on. Let me get to it. So this week, or it was actually last week, one of my coworkers brought up how Busch Apple was back. And one thing about Busch Apple is white boys around, I would just say the country, they get up for Busch Light Apple. Babble, as the kids call it. They get up for Busch Light Apple. And he was going on and on raving about how excited he was that Busch Light Apple was back and that he was so excited to get some, this, that, and the third. So I was at Kroger, stumbled upon some Busch Light Apple, and I was like, haha, that's funny. Went to work the next day, told him about it, and he was like, yo, you didn't buy me any. He's like, I went to my Kroger, they didn't have any. I can't believe you didn't grab me some Busch Light Apple. I was like, oh, word, I didn't know it was that deep. I didn't know that's how we were moving with this alcoholic beverage. I didn't know the boys got up like that for it. So next day, I don't live too far from a Kroger, so I pulled up to Kroger, went in, they were still there, so I grabbed him a little 12-pack, and I was going to bring it to him at work the next day, and then I was like, you know what? Everyone's getting so horn-dogged up for this little beer. I took 2 out for myself, because I don't really drink, so if I put a 12-pack in the fridge, that shit would be there for probably 6 months. I put 2 in the fridge for me. I was like, I'm going to try these. I'm going to bring in the 10-pack. And then I had an idea. One of my things that I am trying to do more of is I'm trying to do more non-podcast content on my social media pages. So I thought this is a great opportunity to make a video of me trying Busch Light Apple and doing a little review, posting it on my TikTok. A little, as I called it, little extracurricular content. So that was the plan. Had it in the fridge for like a week. Didn't really get around to drinking it because, like I said, I'm not a big drinker. But this past Thursday, I believe, yeah, Thursday, the opportunity presented itself. I was making some food. I was like, man, you know what would fucking smack right now is if I was sipping a beer while I was doing this. And then I was like, okay, cool. So I'm gonna pull the Busch Light out. I'm gonna record the video of me trying this Busch Light Apple, and then I'll post it on my TikTok, whatever, and then we'll get back to cooking. Well, when I pulled the Busch Light Apple out of the sink or the fridge there, I was overcome with anxiety. I had come to learn in that moment that the limit that I have for this whole social media content game, it kind of reaches a boiling point when it comes to propping my phone up and recording myself and speaking directly to a camera with the intention of posting it on social media. And I know what you might be thinking is that not literally what you are doing right this second? Yeah, but this is like, I don't know, like a podcast I feel like is something a little different than a minute and a half video of me talking on my phone. Because with this podcast, the reality is I know a majority of people probably aren't gonna, like, you don't accidentally see a podcast, right? I mean, you can see a clip, but like you don't accidentally, like, if you are just scrolling on your social media, you don't accidentally your way into a 1 hour podcast. You kind of have to seek it out, and you kind of have to like go into it knowing what to expect, knowing kind of what you're getting into. Whereas with a short form social media clip, you're kind of just at the mercy of the algorithm in a sense, where you can get put in front of anybody, and it's a lot more likely that a lot of people are going to see this. So there's a little more pressure, at least for me, when it comes to putting myself on camera in that way. And like I said, the whole reason I even brought this entire story up is because we were just talking about how you have to be aware of things, aware of your own shortcomings, aware of your own limits within your life to kind of navigate and create a path to overcome these things. And that is kind of exactly what happened with this whole situation. I was not aware that I was not necessarily comfortable or built for doing something like that. I've been having so much confidence and so much momentum, I guess, with the whole social media thing in regards to the podcast, that I kind of just assumed that I'd overcome all these fears around posting myself on social media. Well, I learned this past Thursday that that is actually not the case. There still is anxieties, there still is challenges to overcome. And I'm not going to lie and say that in the moment it didn't feel a little shitty, because I'm one of those people that, like, if I tell myself I'm going to do something, I do it. I'm not the type that it's like, I'm like, ooh, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to run after work, and then I just don't do it. I do it. So I had told myself that I was going to do this, and I chickened out. I pussied out. I, ran from the grind, so to speak, and it felt like shit. But I kind of took a step back and kind of, talked myself off the ledge of feeling like a loser, and realized that although it did suck, it was beneficial because, like I've just previously stated, I learned my limit. I'm now aware of my limit, and now I can move accordingly of how I can overcome this personal setback, I guess. I don't know if it's really a setback, but this personal hurdle in my life. And it's also pretty cool because I can now take the experience I have with this podcast and apply it to that, because with this podcast, it was the same thing. It was, oh, I'm going to do a podcast. And then you sit down and commit to doing it. And you realize just how, at least just for me, how scary and how uncomfortable it is to record yourself speaking in a room with nobody else around. It's a bit of a weird thing to do, but I kept doing it, and over the course of 6 weeks, I became more comfortable with it, comfortable enough to where I was like, I think I can put myself out there with this, and I started doing it, and now we're, 14, 15 episodes deep, and we're still rocking and rolling. I feel like we're still getting better every day with this whole thing. So that is, I guess, the challenge for myself that I will be embarking on over the next few weeks is getting more comfortable recording myself on my phone, speaking to my phone directly with the intention of posting short form content. Because as much as I do not want to be a short form content poster, I have come to the realization that that is how I will be growing this show, as we have spoken about probably multiple times on this podcast. And now some of my hashtag white boys, may be wondering, well, Drew, you know, really cool that you had that insightful experience, you know, that you became aware of that, you know, shortcoming within your life. But all I really care about is what'd you think of the Busch Light Apple? And can I be honest with you, fellas, my country boys who get bricked up for this flavored light beer? It kind of just tastes like a cider. And you know what? It tastes like a shitty cider. So, fellas, my guys, if you really love Busch Light Apple, drink a cider. It's crazy, you know, you really like the apple flavor, the crisp apple flavor. You're like, oh my God, bro, it's so delicious. It's so good. Yeah, it's called a fucking cider. Go drink a damn cider. Because that's the shit that kind of fires me up. Like, I'm getting a little fired up right now. Because it's just like, I really don't care that much. But it is funny to me that these dudes who only drink Busch Light, who really don't drink any other beer because it's gay or whatever, just get so fired up with a little bit of apple flavoring in their beer, who just get so perked up if they, Busch Light Peach, boys, we're so up. It's like, dude, these flavored shitty light beers that you're drinking, that come out for a limited time, they're available whenever you want. Just go drink literally any other beer at the liquor store besides Busch Light, and you will realize there is so many great beers out there. But you just think that any craft beer is like some hippie shit, or that, you know, IPAs, which I understand IPAs aren't very popular, but there's some good ones out there. There's some good wheat beers. There's some good, Pilsners, red beers, like there's all kinds of beer out there, bro. Like, just try some other shit, and then maybe you'll realize that these flavored light beers, they're okay, but they're like, that's just it. They're like, okay, they're low-key shitty light beer with flavoring in it. So I apologize to any of my Busch Light truthers who are listening to this show that are now screaming at their phones because I just dogged on their culture. That's on me. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to come after my own people, my own whites, you know, because y'all are my boys, but I'm just letting y'all know there's a lot of world out there. A lot of beers out there. You know what I mean? Try a few different ones. And, you know, you might broaden your horizons a little bit. I think we're going to transition now into our weekly observations. For those of you who are new, the weekly observations is a segment I do typically in the middle of the show. And it's just a list of things I've seen throughout the week that I kind of want to touch on. I don't necessarily have a full 5 to 10 minutes on it, but it's just more of things that I just want to kind of bring up. First thing here I want to talk about is last week I kind of spoke on my NASCAR affiliation, you know, who it is that I'm rooting for in the NASCAR Cup Series this year. And I said I was rooting for the 2311 guys and that I wanted to root for Carson Hocevar, but he's kind of been cheeks. Well, fellas, I think he listened to that episode because he went and won Talladega last week, which I don't know how he listened to it because I hadn't released the episode. Anyway, like 3 hours after I recorded that episode, I go downstairs and watch the Talladega, the Jack Links 500, and Carson Hocevar goes and wins the damn thing. And I was like, well, good golly me. Should have put some money on it. Should have bet on it. Should have tried to make a buck. So, jeez. I think that this week, I'm going to try to call my shot this week. We're not going to do a whole NASCAR segment, but I'm going to try to call my shot. They're in Texas this week. I don't really know what the race is called, but my prediction for this week to win the race. I'm recording this at 4:30, so I guess technically the race has started, but I have not seen anything about it. I've not watched it. I haven't looked it up on my phone. William Byron. Book it. That's my prediction. The next thing I want to talk about is I was looking over my analytics. I do every now and again. Just nothing really changes all that much. Just a few percentages fluctuate here or there. But one thing I did see that I thought was kind of interesting is 0.5% of my viewership is from Russia. So, shout out. You know what I'm saying? We thought we were worldwide before when we had a Canadian pop up in here. My brothers and sisters in Christ, we are now uber duper worldwide because we have reached Eastern Europe. Is Russia considered Asia? See, that's where you always get me because hold on, we got to look this up. Is Russia considered Asia? Is Russia in it is, right? It's in Asia. In Europe and Asia, making it a transcontinental country while 77% of its landmass is in Asia. Quotes, Siberia. So you're telling me that the Siberians are actually Asians? A lot to think about here, guys. A lot to unpack here. The vodka drinking, borscht eating white folk up in Russia are actually Asians. A lot to unpack there. But something I thought about when I discovered this, I guess, person who listens to the show that is from Russia. And I'm just going to say this, but I understand this might be a bad look when I say this. Is it racist if I call another white person, although they're from a different country, a racial slur? I did not have any intention of calling Russians a racial slur. Shout out my Russians. But it just kind of popped into my head. I was like, well, like if I call somebody from Germany a racial German slur, obviously that's like not cool. But like, how does that play out in the whole cancel culture phenomenon? Are you following me here? Because like obviously you call a black person, the naughty N-word. Not a good look. That's like a pretty like not a great look. And I understand that's just like American culture. But like still it's like, that's pretty bad. We don't do that. But like if I'm beefing with a German dude in the supermarket, I don't know why I'm like hammering on the Germans here. If I'm beefing with the German dudes in a supermarket and, he's really getting under my skin and I'm like, you know what, I got something for you, buddy. And I call him a racial slur and it gets caught on camera and posted online, am I canceled? That is a very, very intriguing question. Because in all honesty, I'm just like going after my own in a way. Like, yeah, we may be from different cultures, but like you kind of look like me. So it's like, am I going to get canceled? I don't know. I guess while we're on the topic of racial slurs, I do have a funny story. When Naomi and I first started dating and first started, hanging out or whatever, I guess for context, for those of you who don't know me personally, my fiance is black. So apologies to anybody 65 or older who's listening to this show. I know you probably just turned it off when you heard that, but back to the story. So she's black. I'm white, obviously, if you guys were not aware. And we were out to dinner at Napoli's in the Meridian Kessler area. Goated restaurant, just fire pizza. Never had anything else from there. Pizza's fire. I think this is like our, I don't know, like fourth or fifth date. I don't even know if we were officially dating yet, but sat down, get our pizza. She gets a Diet Coke. And then she asks for a straw when they give her the Diet Coke. And the waiter was like, yeah, sure, whatever. And I made a joke. Granted, maybe it was an ill-timed joke. Maybe I wasn't as funny as I thought I was. Because, one thing about me, I'm always trying to crack the funnies. I'm always trying to be a silly little goose, trying to crack a joke, get a smile, get a laugh. So when she asked for the straw, I go, damn, bro, you're needy. In a very playful, funny way. Well, my fellow viewers, she did not see it in that light, and that kind of hurt her feelings. It made her upset. So, I had to backtrack, and, after I apologized, like, yo, I didn't know, I just, like, low-key met you. I didn't know that, like, was something you were not a huge fan of. Went on about our day, had a great time. A few weeks pass. We're sitting in the front seat of her car, just chilling, talking, doing whatever. And she looks at me, and she goes, do you remember when you called me the N-word? And brother, life flashed before my eyes right there. I said, where's the hidden camera? Am I getting canceled? So I kind of eyes wide, slowly turn and look at her, and I go, what are you talking about? And she goes, when we were at Napoli's, you called me needy. I said, sister, you gotta hold up, time out, flag on the play, time out. I was like, you cannot go around saying shit like that while we are in public. I was like, because you may not know this. I was like, you might want to sit down when I give you this information. You're black and I'm white. So if you say, remember that one time you called me the N-word and we're in front of the wrong crowd, I might be smeared on the pavement, bro. My rap career might be over before it even gets started. You know what I'm saying? So I had to lay that out for her and let her know that, like, yo, listen, we're not doing that. So that was our racial slur segment of the show. Next up here, rest in peace, Spirit Airlines. Yes, the budget airline that has defined so many girls' trips to Miami has now closed down for good. Apparently, maybe I'm not a great podcast host, but I didn't look into it. But apparently the government didn't give them money. Let's see. Why did Spirit Airlines shut down? Bro, what? Oh my goodness. Oh my god. Hold on. I'm so sorry. It's okay, chill. Spirit Airlines announced it was shutting down on May 2nd, 2026 after 34 years of operation following a disastrous combination of long-term debt, a blocked merger with JetBlue, and skyrocketing fuel costs caused by the Iran war. Damn. So Donald Trump invading Iran single-handedly ended the 7-deep, 1-hotel-room girls' trip to Miami. If I wasn't mad at you already, brother, I would be irate. Because that is one thing about American culture that we have here in this beautiful, grand country, is the fact that you can go 8 ways on a 1-bed hotel room with 7 of your best girlfriends to fly to Miami for that bachelorette trip, just to be at each other's neck the whole time and hate each other by the time you come home. That is American culture, and that is what you, Donald Trump, have taken away from us. But in all seriousness, rest in peace, Spirit Airlines. I've never flown Spirit, because I'm not broke as fuck. No, it's just I just never. Actually, I would have flown Spirit multiple times, but my fiance is utterly terrified of Spirit. So we have never found ourselves on a Spirit flight. But one thing I will say is maybe if, at the risk of sounding out of touch, let me preface, maybe if you can only afford to fly Spirit, maybe you shouldn't be going on vacation. Oh my God, he said it, and I did. Because I feel like, man, if you can't spend an extra $50 to get on a nicer plane, maybe you shouldn't be going on vacation to begin with. And another question, can we put our tinfoil hats on for a second here? Was Spirit Airlines just a CIA ploy to keep the impoverished poor? What do you mean by that, Drew? Let me get into it. If I'm poor, right, really I have no business going on vacation. I should probably be trying to pull myself out of the gutter, as the kids say. But all of a sudden, I go on Google Flights. I go on Expedia. And I see I can fly to Fort Lauderdale for $50. Pack the kids, Billy Bob. we're going to Florida. You know what I'm saying? And then you're going to get down there and you're going to spend all your money on stupid t-shirts. Because, like, why is that? Why is it that... See, man, I'm just going to keep going, but I know I sound like an asshole. Why is it that poor people always come back from Florida with those t-shirts that just say, like, St. Augustine, Florida on it, and it's, like, bright pink? Why is that? What's the goal? What are you accomplishing? That's like, all right, cool, you went to St. Augustine. You went to Fort Lauderdale. You went to Destin, Florida. Damn, that's really what it is. Bro, hold on. These, like, tourist Florida spots are just poor people vacation traps. That's what it is. They're CIA implemented poor people vacation traps. Because where do all the poor Midwestern people go when they want to go on vacation? They go to Florida. And man, let's say they don't have the means of a vehicle to get there. How are they getting to this place? A $50 flight from Spirit Airlines. And then once they get there, what are they going to spend their money on? I mean, they're probably going to go to fucking McDonald's. And then, well, what else are they going to buy? A $10 neon orange t-shirt that says Destin, Florida on it. And the CIA is just licking their fingers. So shout out Donald Trump. You ruined the spring break for all the trailer park kids in America. And then the last thing I got here is when I was driving home yesterday, I saw a shirtless guy hugging a tree in his front yard. And I'll be honest, kind of a vibe. I didn't really know how to feel about it when I initially saw it. Like when I was in the passenger seat, so, we're driving. And I see a shirtless dude in his front yard, and I don't think anything of it. But then I looked a little closer, and he was full on hugging a tree. And at first, I was like, fucking hippie. And then I was like, wait a minute. No, Drew, be nice. Because frankly, if everyone went outside and did that right now for like 2 minutes, we'd all probably feel a little bit better. So all this dude was doing is just doing what like a majority of Americans probably need to do to become more in touch with nature. Or he was tripping balls on mushrooms. Either way, I think I need to be less judgmental about people hugging trees, I guess. I don't know. It's just a very odd thing to see because like it was on a main road and he was out there just full on hugging it. And it was like, your initial thought is like, this dude's fucking weird. But then you kind of zoom back, take a step back, zoom out, and you're like, maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe he's onto something, and maybe I need to be doing more of that. Every now and again, I step outside, take the dog out to pee for the night. I go out there barefoot, touch my little toesies in the grass. You know what I'm saying? Does it do anything for me? Not really. But I feel like something's happening. I feel like, you know what? Maybe this is good for me. Because, I'm going to be honest, when's the last time you put your bare feet on some grass? Answer me that one, liberal. That is all that I have for the weekly observations this week. A very interesting bag of observations we had there. I think we're going to close today's show just touching on the NBA playoffs. I've done it the past few episodes. Might as well finish this one out touching over the first round, which I will say has been absolute insanity. I think when I first initially brought up the NBA playoffs, I literally said that the first round is a bit of a snooze fest, so we'll probably just keep a pin in the playoffs. And what I meant by that is like we'll pick up the conversation pretty much in the second round or maybe even the conference finals because that's really when the only fun, entertaining things happen. Well, let me tell you, it has been anything but boring in the NBA first round. It has been actually one of the more insane first rounds of the NBA playoffs in recent memory. I mean, I guess to start things off, I've been pretty anti-New York on this show. I've been pretty heavy in the Atlanta Hawks camp. There for a minute, I thought the Atlanta Hawks were going to go on to win the series. I think they were up 2-1 at one point. They lost by like 60 points in, what was it, game 6 for the Knicks to close out the series. I was downstairs on whatever night it was. I think it was Thursday night. And Naomi and I were putting together our wedding invitations. So I wasn't watching the game, but I got a notification from ESPN. And it was like, oh my God. It said, is this score real? New York gets out to a big lead on the Atlanta Hawks. So I go check the score. I'm like, well, what are they talking about? Is this score real? Second quarter, 77-25. I said, holy fuck. That was the wildest first half score I've seen in my entire life. My jaw was open, just sitting there looking at my phone. I look at Naomi. I go, Naomi, guess the score of the Hawks-Knicks game. And she goes, I don't know, what is it, like 70-20? And I looked at her. I go, that's exactly what it is. And she didn't fucking believe me. She's like, shut up. So she picks her phone up and looks at it. And she's like, oh my God. And I was like, yeah, it's a massacre over there. Absolutely insane. Atlanta, I mean, I guess you had a good season, but like, whatever. You disappointed me. I'm no longer a fan. I was a fan for like a week and a half. Not a fan anymore. You've lost a faithful servant. The next series, I guess we'll stick to the Eastern Conference. And then while we're on the topic of Game 6, just absolute pooping your pants, the Orlando Magic missed 23 shots in a row, didn't score in 45 real-life minutes? What is happening? What is going on in these NBA playoffs? How the fuck, as a professional basketball team, do you miss 23 straight field goals? Like, that is some... I don't even know how to, like how to quantify that. 23 straight field goals. 45 real life, like not in game, real life minutes without a bucket. And I think, it was that game, I think, where the fans, because it was in Orlando, the fans started booing them because they were missing so many shots. Absolutely insane. Absolutely absurd. I think that game, just that stretch alone of missing all those shots lost them this series. There's no way you come back from that. There's no way you bounce back from that embarrassing of an outing. Which, while we're actually on the topic, I think they're playing right now Game 7. Let's see. And scores. And it's 60-49 at half. The Detroit Pistons are up. Yeah, that shit's over. I mean, the Magic made it interesting. They made it fun, but like, you can't do some shit like that and expect to win basketball games. I guess that is the thing about the NBA playoffs, is that typically the better team wins in the playoffs. Like, it's not very often that the worst team comes out ahead. Usually the better team, the team built for the deep playoff runs, tends to find themselves in the driver's seat. But as I say that, I realize that is not remotely true, because the 76ers just beat the Boston Celtics in 7. Like, bro, what is happening? That's all I can keep thinking when I'm watching these games, is like, what is going on? Because not only is it the fact that the Philadelphia 76ers came back from 3-1 to beat the Boston Celtics, but it was just the fact that the level of basketball that was being played in the last 3 minutes of that game to get them to the point where they won that game is absolutely absurd. Like, when I was watching that game, the 76ers looked so bad. They couldn't get a bucket. Tyrese Maxey missed a wide open layup. Joel Embiid was falling on the floor every 3 seconds. And Jaylen Brown was just putting the team on his back, doing all types of crazy shit. But you still lose the game. Like, they were within 2 at one point, but then, like, with a minute to go, Tyrese Maxey decides, you know what, I want to play basketball again. And he goes out there, goes on like an 8-0 run by himself, closes the game out. Boston Celtics eliminated. And I feel a little stupid, because I was saying that I literally said Boston's coming out of the East and Boston is going to the NBA Finals. And yet here we are. They're eliminated. They're not even in the playoffs anymore, and the 76ers are going on to the next round. And then on top of that, I even said, I was like, okay, so the Hawks are going to beat the Knicks, which means they're going to end up playing the Cavs or whatever. Somehow, some way, I was like, it's going to be, oh no, whatever. I was like, it's going to be Cavs, Celtics in the conference finals. Celtics go on to win the NBA championship. That's what I said. Bro, the Celtics are eliminated and the Cavs are going to a Game 7 with Toronto right now. My two picks for the Eastern Conference Finals could be eliminated in the first round. And I feel like with the NBA Finals, there's usually not that much parity. There's usually not that much uncertainty when it comes with who is advancing to the next round. It's usually like, especially in the first round, out of the 8 first round matchups, 7 of them are probably going to go to the higher seed. That's just usually how it goes. There's like usually like one team that kind of comes out and is like, oh shit, we got an upset. But this year, bro, it's just been like, what is going on? The 76ers beat the Celtics. The Magic looks like they still could come back. They almost beat the Detroit Pistons. There was 2 games where the Hawks looked like they were going to do it. But then if we jump over to the Western Conference, the Minnesota Timberwolves knock out the Denver Nuggets. Not even knock out the Denver Nuggets. They did it without their top 3 guards. No Ant Edwards, no DiVincenzo, no Ayo Dosunmu. And they beat the Denver Nuggets in Game 6 or Game 5, whatever it was. What? Fellas, what is going on here? And then on top, so who do they even have? They got the Spurs. Well, I don't know. I was going to say it was fun hanging out with you, Minnesota. Glad you got through the first round, but you're about to lose. But who knows, bro? Who knows? And before I get too far away from it, when I was watching this, I want to go back to the Boston 76ers series. When I was watching this game last night, I saw a video about someone talking about today, but I noticed it in real time. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum were like dapping up and laughing with Joel Embiid after they just lost Game 7 in the NBA playoffs. Am I wrong to think that that's just like kind of wild? Because if it were me personally, if I was a Pacers fan and the Pacers, like same scenario, let's say the Pacers are the 2 seed and the 76ers are the 7, and we just lost after being up 3-1 to the 7 seed, I would be so mad. I would be so livid. I probably wouldn't talk to anybody about anything basketball related, or maybe just anybody in general, for like at least 2 business days. I would need time to process this and time to get over my emotions and get over my frustration of what just transpired with my basketball team. And if I saw Tyrese Halliburton hee and ha and dapping up players, I'd be like, you're still my guy, Tyrese, but respectfully, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why are you hee and ha and dapping up dudes? We just lost in Game 7 as the higher seed after being up 3-1, and you think shit is sweet? You think this is a funny instance where we can laugh and all be joyful and have fun? No! I want you to feel bad. I want you to feel like shit. I want you to think about what you just did. And think about how you just fell flat on the biggest stage. The bright lights. And now you're going around dapping up the other team and hee and ha, which is exactly what Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum did. Which I thought was kind of wild in the moment when I saw it. And granted, I guess I didn't think too much of it. I kind of just was like, whatever, maybe they're friends, maybe they're little buddies, but nah, that shit was weird. That shit was weird. Not my goat. I want my boys to be mad. I want them to be so mad they walk off the floor without high-fiving the other team. I'm not dapping you up. You're my op now. We're rivals. What do you mean you just beat me 3-1? You came back 3-1. Now you want to dap me up and be friends. Like, oh shit, sweet. Nah. It's not how we do this. It's not what this shit's about. So I guess that's all I have on the first round of the NBA playoffs, which does come to a close today. Before we get off here, though, I do want to check the NASCAR race. Who? Okay. Where is... Bro, don't tell me. William Byron's in 24th place. Maybe y'all should not listen to me. Maybe I do know what I'm talking about. But Corey Haim is currently leading the race. That's why I said who. Shout out him. Oh, he's a 2311 driver. You know what? My boy's a 2311, bro. They know how to put a competent race car on the track. Let me tell you that, friends. But yeah, I think that's all we really got for today. Bit of a shorter episode in comparison to my other ones because my last two have been over an hour, and this one we're gonna be coming in just under. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in to the show once again. It's always a treat and it's always a pleasure to hang out with you for our what is it? Court obligated hourly hangout. It's nice to have that with you guys every week, and thank you for showing up once again. If you are listening on Spotify, please do not forget to rate 5 stars. Follow the show. Drop a comment down below if you are listening. Just say whatever you got. Comment your favorite emoji. If you're on Spotify, comment your favorite emoji. If you're listening on YouTube, please do not forget to subscribe as well. Like the video, comment for the YouTube algorithm. I'm trying to grow the reach here of the show, so interact with it any way you can. If you're over on YouTube, how about you guys just comment your favorite song at the moment. Maybe put me onto some music, who knows. Comment your favorite song in the moment. I just realized we didn't even get into talking about Michael. Damn. Rats. I guess for anyone who does care, it was pretty good. I think if you like Michael Jackson, go see it. It doesn't go as deep as I would have wanted it to, but it's a good movie. It's better to get on that. Apple Podcasts. I don't know what goes on over there. I don't know if you can comment. I don't know if you can like. I don't know if you can rate the show. But if you whatever you can do on Apple Podcasts, go ahead and do it. That would be awesome. Don't forget to follow the socials at Accidentally Profound on Instagram, at Accidentally Profound Pod on TikTok. And I think that is all the shout outs I have to give for any of my socials. So once again, guys, thank you so much for listening. It's been an honor to be your host. And I will catch you guys next week. Goodbye.